YouTube has just deleted a very prominent Antifa YouTube account called 3 Arrows. 3 Arrows, of course, is a reference to the Antifa logo. I think this may be likely due to the negative press from the Andy No incident, where people were throwing cups with 3 arrows on them. Now, some far-left activists are saying that YouTube has no idea what 3 arrows means. This guy's channel may have been banned for other reasons. It's true, but it is convenient timing that shortly after this big wave of press and a ton of conservatives denouncing Antifa, which they've been doing in the past, but now it's a big concerted effort, I'm not surprised that 3 Arrows, a YouTube channel with that symbol, was banned. But I'll say this. This is what the left wanted. Now, obviously not everyone on the left wants this. I think it's silly that anyone would ever assume that simply because I said the left. I'm referring to prominent organizations, I'm referring to corporate leftists, and I'm referring to the Antifa activists who rally behind them. There are absolutely people like Jimmy Dore and David Pakman who aren't, Jimmy Dore especially opposes censorship. David, I'm not entirely familiar with his position, but he's been very principled on a lot of these issues. So I do want to highlight some of David's posts because David Pakman himself has actually taken a big hit, as have all of us on YouTube. So it's not the entire left. It's typically the corporate left, the Democrats, the prominent figures, which makes up a large, vocal, and powerful section of the left. Most people that would assign themselves the tribe of left probably aren't paying attention. And this is true for some personalities. But what we're seeing here, Antifa being taken down, is completely in line with everything that's happened since the Vox adpocalypse. So let's start with a timeline. And yes, there's criticism for YouTube here too. First, let me just say, Dan Arrows, who runs the 3 Arrows YouTube channel, it was actually a very good channel. I've seen only a few of the videos. They were calm, rational, and they were decent. It was arguments and decent pushback from the left. I can absolutely respect that. His channel should not be removed. However, his channel is specifically using a symbol associated with an extremist organization that has been labeled as terrorists in the US. He is not an American. I believe he's in Germany. Hence, YouTube has taken him down. I don't really know what to say other than I think his speech was fine. However, it does become strange. It's hard for me to even talk about because I literally have people arguing right now saying, Tim, you would defend extremist speech. Well, the guy literally has the 3 arrow symbol, and yes, they're labeled a terror organization. What do you want me to do? I get it. Antifa is a decentralized network. It doesn't matter. They're flying an extremist flag. As far as law enforcement is concerned, as far as the shareholders of Alphabet, YouTube, whatever are concerned. So first, here's what happened. Dan Arrows tweeted, YouTube removed my, quote, Jordan Peterson doesn't understand Nazism video for hate speech. Yes, this has been happening. It's the Vox adpocalypse. Historical channels, teachers, activists have been purged before. This is what mainstream left-wing activists have advocated for. I am not being hyperbolic. Change the Terms is a very prominent, high-profile organization that wants to reduce hate online. That includes you for using these words. Let me just clarify to those who maybe don't watch my content. The actual Nazi people will just mask their language behind hidden terms and innuendo, and they'll put on a suit and tie. They will be fine. When you try to expose them using those words, you will be banned. He said, Team YouTube, the video in question is co-written with a PhD historian who wrote multiple books on various aspects of the Third Reich and is educational in nature. Don't see how this qualifies for hate speech. I completely agree. Excuse me, it should not be taken down. His channel should be restored. Hopefully YouTube does. He goes on to say, maybe I should have just called someone I'm not going to say what he said, but he's referring to Steven Crowder and Carlos Maza over and over again, then it might just have been demonetized instead of deleted. Okay. You are now defending the guy who got you banned in the first place, okay? When I point this out, they say, oh, Pim Tool doesn't understand censorship. Dude, seriously? You are the ones advocating for censorship. You are the ones advocating for extremists to be taken down. Steven Crowder saying naughty words is not far-right extremism. It's just him being a dick. So YouTube actually punished him, even though his commentary didn't cross the line. You can claim it did, it didn't. Because if you want to claim his did, then you're moving the line past Trevor Noah, Samantha Bee, John Oliver, Jon Stewart, etc., etc. We're not there. Steven Crowder said naughty words. Fine. He's been punished. You're defending that. You are literally a far left extremist organization. Decentralized organization, sure. Team YouTube said, "Hi Dan, thanks for tagging us. We passed this along to the team, and upon further review, it was confirmed to be an incorrect takedown. The video is now back up. Let us know if you need any additional help." Well, that's good, right? And then we see this. Justin Wang says, YouTube tweets this at the dude shortly before deleting his whole channel. You can't make this up. And yes, he said, "Okay, never mind. Just received an email that my channel got deleted, LOL. The channel, no strikes for breaching community guidelines or copyright infringement. What is happening?" I'll tell you what's happening. I think your arguments are reasonable. I think you provide good pushback against other extremists, but you yourself are an extremist. I'm sorry. Antifa and the Three Arrows are not a mainstream, moderate organization that is acceptable by most people, especially after they brutally beat a gay Asian in Portland. It doesn't matter if it's decentralized. It doesn't matter, what you think your beliefs are versus theirs. It matters that you all fly the same flag. You all use the same symbols. Period. You want to get into an argument with a white nationalist about how they disagree with the Klan? I don't care. It's basically the same thing, and I'm not surprised they're getting banned. Now, here's the thing. I believe in free speech. I am not a free speech absolutist. I think there are reasonable restrictions on speech, and that's what the Supreme Court has determined. I also believe online it's reasonable to remove threats and doxing, and yes, to a certain degree, harassment. But it's hard to know where that line is, and thus I kind of fall back and say, man, I really don't know. I do know doxing should not be permitted. Threats shouldn't be permitted. Harassment is hard to define. So I step back on that one. Jordan Peterson wants to launch, he's launching a network where he says things will only be removed by court order. I disagree with that. Doxing should be removed and threats should be removed. You shouldn't need a court to tell you what a threat is. But it is challenging. I can understand why he's doing it, because he wants a legal standard so that you can't be accused of bias. Without that standard, the left-wing activists will just target the right. The right will get taken down more often because the right typically doesn't call for the left to be shut down on the internet, which is what I brought up. My response was, Dan tweeted, "Would really love some of YouTube's alleged left-wing bias right now." Censorship is the left-wing bias. The right hasn't been calling for censorship on YouTube. I'm talking about YouTube. This is YouTube taking action based on the demands of several left-wing groups, such as Change the Terms. You don't need left-wing bias. You need free speech advocates coming to your defense. However, they love slamming me when I defend all of them. There have been a few left-wing individuals who I've defended their speech and they've been targeted, and they have thanked me for that. But however, some of these people, the way I describe it? I put out a tweet, I don't think I have it pulled up, where I said, they're shocked that free speech advocates don't rush to their defense when they get censored. That's like saying, listen, you are the fire burning down the internet. You're literally attacking these companies, demanding censorship. And then when they say, you got it, and censor you, you're like, why won't you defend me? Because you are the fire we are trying to put out. But you know what? That is the paradox of free speech. Even though these people are actively calling for censorship, I will still defend their right to do so. You have every right. YouTube should not take them down. It violates no rules. This channel did nothing wrong. As far as I can tell, they did nothing wrong. If he wants to put out criticism of right-wing and centrist figures, by all means, please do. It's good to have balanced debate from all sides. I do not believe I believe Dan Arrow's content of the stuff that I've seen was actually pretty good faith and respectable critique from the left. One of the better channels. So I think it's wrong he was taken down. But it is rather frustrating that it is these mainstream left-wing organizations, and his response is that YouTube isn't biased towards the left. Change the Terms is partly aligned with one of the organizations involved is the Southern Poverty Law Center. There are no right-wing organizations in Change the Terms. It is the left. The left-wing bias is what got you banned. You are a fringe group damaging to the left. They got rid of you. So I said this. I have talked with a few progressive YouTubers who have all seen their views drop by the millions per month after YouTube took action against all news and politics. The left were the ones complaining about this. Well, now you reap what you sow. I then go on to point out that my suggestions are way down, around 90%, as are many other progressive channels. My homepage recommendations are way up. The thing is, they're no longer auto-playing videos from political content for the most part. It's still there a little bit. But now you're competing against me. I am not here. People are saying like, oh, Tim's now talking about how his business is doing well. No, I'm saying that when you advocate for censorship and then YouTube says we're changing the system so no one gets suggested to like content anymore, and they put your left wing up against my moderate centrist content, I win. Period. My views are way up because people would prefer to watch my content. Here's what happens. There are 2 videos about Trump. In one, I say, I'm not a big fan of the guy, okay? Here's what I think he's done wrong. In this instance, I believe he deserves credit. More people like that than like you saying Orange Man bad. Therefore, your content is losing millions of views. Congratulations. In this instance, 3 Arrows goes beyond and is just wiped off of YouTube because it's extremism. 3 Arrows is a symbol associated with Antifa, which has been labeled a terrorist organization in the US by DHS and the FBI, as reported by The Independent and many other news outlets. So don't be surprised when you say ban the extremists and they say, okay, you first. That's what I've been warning about. We've all been warning about it. So we'll move on. There's a bit more because Dan responded and said, give me a break, man. The US government is currently charging a journalist under the Espionage Act for the first time in history, but censorship is supposedly the left-wing position because people want YouTube to enforce its terms of service for harassment. When did I ever agree with the persecution and prosecution of Julian Assange? I'm pretty sure for the past decade I've spoken out against it. I'm talking about typically the press and the Espionage Act actions by Barack Obama. But yes, when it came to Assange, I've done nothing but defend the man and his right to the press, as have many other journalists. Is that your only defense? That because the current right-wing administration is targeting Assange, Barack Obama didn't? No. We can point the finger at the authoritarianism in the government all day and night. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm specifically talking about YouTube, the fake narrative of the rabbit hole that has resulted in everyone being hit and has resulted in you getting banned and the Vox adpocalypse. Do you think the shareholders at YouTube care about your 3 Arrows? Do you think they care about your politics? They don't. They care about the shareholders. So I'll tell you what happens. 1, there is a bias against conservatives. You are wrong. Okay? There is a left-wing bias. It's not in favor of you fringe extremists that hurt their bottom line. When Google employees said they wanted to protest during Pride, Google said no. Because Google is corporate leftism pretending to be Antifa so that they can, cater to the market and make their shares go up to try and be safe. Google's bias is in the left, not in the socialist to an extent, right? They'll still defend you, but it's in the left. Their policies are built around the left, and marketing is typically favorable to the left. You also then have left-wing activists who mass flag the right and get the right banned, and then corporate leftists and media target the right and get them banned too. So yes, YouTube does target conservatives more than the left. But when it comes down to what the corporate, media is saying, goodbye. A gay Asian was just beaten by Antifa. You're the bad guy. Plain and simple. So I said, and I basically made the point, change the terms. Data and Society and the New York Times are not making stories about harassment. They're specifically talking about extremism. As far as YouTube is concerned, or Alphabet, 3 Arrows may as well be a swastika after the Andy Ngo incident. And then, of course, they get all bent out of shape. How dare you compare the two? I don't care. I'm not saying they're the same because I don't think they are. Of course, one is worse than the other. It doesn't change the fact that you are a roving band of black-clad individuals starting fires and beating people. Okay, one clearly is worse than the other, but you're still bad. 2 things can be true at the same time. So I'll say it again. His channel should be restored, but heaven forbid. Now let's move on a little bit. This was where his channel was. Just show you that it says this channel does not exist. I think I already highlighted this. Censorship is the left-wing bias. The right has not been calling for this. Here's what I want to show you. This here is a video from David Pakman. It's from last week where he interviewed Caleb Kane, who is, look, I'm going to say this, in my opinion, an obvious grifter. He's a guy who claims to have been alt-right, but then claims he wasn't alt-right. His story makes no sense. The New York Times published a front page thing. None of it makes sense. Okay, the dude claims he never fell for the radical beliefs of the alt-right, but then says he's a former alt-right. I'll tell you what I think happened. Over the past year, there's been a narrative that there's a YouTube rabbit hole. I think this dude is just some slimy grifter who realized he can make money by pretending to be, oh no, I was radicalized. Yeah, he claimed he was a tradcon, a traditional conservative. That's not an extremist, but sure enough, he puts out this video where he says he's former alt-right, and then lo and behold, the narrative hits the front page of the New York Times. Congratulations, bravo, you've won, your narrative worked, and now you're being interviewed by David Pakman. Well, unfortunately for David, I don't think he understood the context, and I mean no disrespect, but I don't think David actually read the story. If you actually read the New York Times story, you can see that this guy, according to the New York Times, was actually, watched conservative videos, became conservative, never bought into the far right, and then eventually watched left-wing videos and became a liberal. That's the opposite of their narrative. He was never alt-right in the first place. This story is part of a narrative that has created the problems for everyone on YouTube and has resulted in all of us losing suggestions. Now it's coming down to so listen, if you watch Stephen Colbert, it would autoplay David Pakman. They shut that down. Now, the only way to see David Pakman is on the home page in recommendations. However, that means David videos compete with mine and others on the same subject matter. This is technically a good thing in a lot of ways, but I don't really know. Look, my channel's doing better than ever. Because when there's two videos, like I pointed out, and one is kind of like, Trump's kind of bad, but not that bad. And then you got someone who's like screeching about Trump being orange man bad. People click mine. I win. Which means some people's views have dropped dramatically, in the millions. Whereas mine and some others have gone up dramatically. This change was brought about due to the false narrative of the rabbit hole, of which David interviewed a guy who was pushing nonsense and fake news, which makes no sense, in my opinion, for personal gain. So I'm not going to act like David's interview of him resulted in what happened to everybody else. I'm just saying this narrative that has persisted is why we are all getting hit. And David is getting hit as well. So he's got a bunch of videos, and I'll show his videos. And again, I do respect David's channel. I was just watching one of his videos. It was really, really good, called, Why the Left Shouldn't Destroy Itself. And I thought he did a really, really good job calling out the wackos. He made one video, How Quickly Will YouTube Destroy My Channel? In this video, YouTube might be over for our channel. And we can see here that his views recommendations have dropped dramatically and right around May, like everyone else. There's a point where I don't know if he has the graph here. Here we go. This graph, for those that can't see it, shows that his suggested videos was around 3.5 million, and after May has dropped to around 1.5 million, actually less, maybe 1.2. David has lost millions of views per month following the algorithmic change that was brought about by the fake news and the lies. That it's all the same thing. The Vox Adpocalypse, the New York Times front page, Data and Society. What they do is they shriek Nazi so that regular people say, ooh, get rid of it. And then what do? They come for people like David Pakman. David is nothing like Three Arrows. David is mainstream commentary on left-wing progressive issues. But they have absolutely taken action against him. And now here's what happens. Where it used to be, you'd watch Stephen Colbert, you might get recommended Pakman. You watch Pakman, you get recommended more Pakman. Here's what's happening now. You watch Pakman, you get recommended CNN. You watch Colbert, you get recommended CNN. Congratulations. It wasn't David calling for these actions. But I will have some criticism because David did promote the narrative that is continuing to damage independent commentary and news on YouTube. More importantly, it's a narrative that has been around for over a year and completely fake. Change the terms, Data and Society, the New York Times, and all the corporate leftists have been pushing this. And here we are. We have this video also from David. Is YouTube trying to get me to quit? Because not only have they been deranking suggestions for David, they've actually been demonetizing his content, as have they mine and many others. Independent news is getting hit. The reason I bring up the stuff having to do with David is because David is the perfect example of a channel that should be promoted. David is an authoritative source. I think he gets some of his stuff wrong, but I think he does pretty good content. I'm a somewhat regular watcher of his content. We've done videos together, and I have tremendous respect for the work he does. I've known him for a long time. I disagree with a lot of his positions, but he approaches things fair, in a professional way. He sometimes gets things wrong, like I think he got this one wrong, but hey, it is what it is. I get things wrong too. I'm open to criticism. For the most part, his channel's pretty good. And I'll stress this. I was just watching a video where he was criticizing, regressive leftist types who were talking about prejudice plus power and all that, and he was like, no way, shut it down. So David is, in my opinion, a great example of a good left-wing commentator. So is Jimmy Dore. YouTube should be promoting them. YouTube should be. He is not like Three Arrows. Even Three Arrows isn't that bad. Three Arrows isn't an Antifa channel calling for violence or anything like that. He's criticizing the right. But of course, it's going to hit everybody because YouTube feels it's safer to just say Fox News and CNN, those are your channels. So now we all get hit. We all get hit because of this. Because of this narrative and the lies that have predominantly come from the left. Show me the right-wingers demanding censorship on social media. They exist. Of course they do. For the most part, the body of conservatives that exists online has been calling for free speech because they are the ones getting banned for the most part. But this is the game that's played. They will point to a bigoted racist and say, that person's bad. Then the left starts screaming, why won't you ban these people in their harassment? And they go, okay. And then what do? They get rid of the left who would dare challenge the establishment. Congratulations, you reap what you sow. And I want to stress, I'm not saying David is one of these people calling for censorship. No, by no means. I'm saying he's a victim of the fringe left-wing activists who's he's actually called out in the past. I'm highlighting David specifically to say, to those on the left who like David Pakman's content, who appreciate his commentary and think he's shining a light in dark times, the advocacy of censorship from Change the Terms, from Data and Society and other left-wing organizations is hurting progressives, and it's getting Antifa channels deleted. I'll say this. This channel, for the third time, should be restored, 100%. I actually reached out to 3 hours before and wanted to have a conversation with him because I thought he did good work. He didn't want to do it, though. He declined, which is typical. Right? I'm not trying to be a dick, but it is. I reach out periodically to a ton of leftists for a conversation. They don't want to do it. It's another reason I have tremendous respect for David Pakman, because he does. And it's not that hard to get a hold of him. Like, hey, you want to do it? Yeah, let's do a video. And then we do a video. It's great. And then there's some criticism back and forth. But I think for the most part, like, that's where we should be. We should be in a position where, like, David and I will be like, oh, yeah, I disagree. I think you're wrong. I think you're doing this. And at the end of the day, we're like, hey, there we go. End of story. It shouldn't be about ban them, ban them, ban them, and then people fighting and insulting each other. The content that should be promoted is content that's thoughtful, engaging, and I think 3 Arrows was. But I'm gonna say I'm not gonna do a half an hour on this one. I'm gonna stop soon. When you fly the symbol that is associated with the attack on a gay Asian in Portland, don't be surprised when you get the X. I do think they will restore the channel. I do, but I'm not entirely sure though. Right? The symbol is what it is. It's extremist, plain and simple. So, look, the point of this video is, this is what happens when the left advocates for censorship. Now, of course, it's mostly the corporate left. But there are many Antifa, aligned individuals who are defending corporate leftists. Even Dan himself has, what did he say when he responded to me? He said, is this the one? Yeah, he said that because the left-wing position wants YouTube to enforce its terms of service for harassment. Harassment isn't a legal standard, the way YouTube enforces it. There is a standard for it, and you have to file a police report, and if they continue, then, you can take action against them. But when you want YouTube to enforce vague policies, don't be surprised when they enforce it against you. YouTube forbids extremist content. Congratulations. So here's what I have to say. If everywhere you go you smell poo, I can't swear, check your boot. If YouTube says they're going to ban extremists and then they ban you, maybe it's time to go look in the mirror. I'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out. Next segment will be at 4 p.m. on the main channel, and I will see you all there. That's youtube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel.